Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, Presidents, Leaders and Managers of Cooperatives, distinguished representatives of the Government of Mozambique, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the FAO Assistant Director General and the Regional Representative for Africa, Mr. Bukar Tijani, I wish to register FAO's appreciation to the International Cooperative Alliance Africa for having invited us to this extremely important event, the Cooperative Leaders, Managers and Ministerial Conference Technical Committee. As we all agree, food and agriculture are key to the vision of sustainable development as laid out in the 2030 Agenda and as reflected in Sustainable Development Goal 2, which calls upon us all to end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. I would like to begin by highlighting the current situation on food security and nutrition in Africa, before sharing some analysis on causes and mitigation strategies for food insecurity and malnutrition across the continent. The most recent estimates of undernourishment, presented in FAO's publication entitled 2017 Africa Regional Overview of Food Security and Nutrition, showed good progress in reducing the prevalence of undernourishment until 2010, with a drop from 178 million people in 2000 to 171 million in 2010 afflicted by undernourishment. However, there has been little improvement since 2010, and the prevalence of undernourishment appears to have risen from about 21% to just under 23% from 2015 to 2016, while over the same period the number of undernourished rose from 200 million to 224 million. There appears that this upward trend may have continued during the last year. This African trend is in line with the global one. Globally, the prevalence of undernourishment has risen slightly each year, from 10.7% in 2014 to 11% in 2016, and is predicted to rise further in 2017. For Africa, the deterioration started a year earlier. While the trends amongst the sub-regions of the continent are uniform, the levels of prevalence of undernourishment vary considerably. The prevalence of undernourishment in southern and western Africa is considerably lower than the regional average, and it is above average in Central and Eastern Africa, where we have seen an increase by 39% in total numbers since 2010. In sub-Saharan Africa, there are multiple burdens of malnutrition, namely stunting, wasting and overweight. In the region, there were 57 million stunted children under the age of 5 in 2015, which accounted 34% of the total number of these children in the world. The highest prevalence is in Eastern Africa, where 37% of children under the age of 5 are stunted. Overall, the prevalence in the region dropped by 8% over the past 15 years, a modest but steady improvement. In 2016, 12 million children, or 7%, suffered from wasting in sub-Saharan Africa. This figure accounted for 23% of the total global number of wasted children. The burden was highest in Western and Central Africa. Also in Sub-Saharan Africa, there were about 6 million overweight children, representing 4% of all children under the age of 5. While this was below the global average of 6% and has been flat over the past 2 decades, in Southern Africa the rate has been steadily increasing and has reached 12%, which is the highest prevalence globally. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, drivers of the worsening situation in 2015 and 2016 in many countries in the region included adverse climatic conditions, often linked to El Niño, droughts, and El Niña, floods. Conflict, sometimes in combination with drought or floods, has also contributed to severe food insecurity in several countries. Weak extractive and non-extractive commodity prices and a difficult global economic environment have further exacerbated the worsening food security situation. In particular, adverse climatic conditions due to the 2015-2016 El Niño phenomenon, one of the strongest ever recorded, inflicted output losses in crop and livestock production in Eastern and Southern Africa. In the latter sub-region, widespread droughts left more than 20 million persons in need of emergency food assistance in 2016. Although El Niño ended in 2016, it continued to affect weather patterns in several areas. Looking forward, rapid population growth will add to the challenges of meeting the SDG 2 goal in Sub-Saharan Africa in the coming decades. By the year 2030, the population in Africa is expected to grow to about 1.7 billion. Food production is expected to increase considerably to meet rising demand, while climate change will intensify existing challenges. At the same time, population and income growth offer great opportunities for inclusive and sustainable growth of domestic agriculture and agribusiness. The value of Africa's food and agricultural market is projected to reach $1 trillion by 2030. Africa also has the youngest population in the world, with almost 200 million people aged 15 to 24, which is expected to double by 2045. In tandem, these trends can be harnessed to produce a positive dividend for growth and development. Regional integration, including through greater trade in goods and services, is one of the key aspirations of the African Union's Agenda 2063, as expressed in the 10-year implementation plan that covers the period 2014 to 2023, adopted as the Malabo Declaration in 2014. Within this context, establishing the Continental Free Trade Area, a flagship program of the agenda, is expected to help achieve a doubling of intra-African trade by 2022. With regard to agriculture, the tripling of the volume of intra-African trade by 2023 has been declared a national target, and the creation of a single market of up to 1.2 billion people and a GDP of more than $2.2 billion is expected to generate substantial economic gains. By one estimate, based on the best-case scenario of the elimination of all tariffs on intra-African trade, the long-term gains would be in the region of $16 billion annually. Unlocking the enormous potential of Africa's agriculture is key to achieving the Africa we want, as espoused in the AU Agenda 2063. This calls for strategic partnerships and cooperation with various actors, including cooperatives and producers' organizations. For many years, FAO has been working to develop the capacities of cooperative and producers' organizations to reinforce their potential to respond to their members' needs, ensure equitable and effective service delivery, as well as to enhance trade and investment through business activities. For FAO, cooperatives and farmer organizations are key partners in the design and sustainable agricultural approaches that we would like to pursue to ensure rural transformation at all levels. Producer organizations and the institutional arrangements they develop enable small-scale producers not only to play the game of managing natural resources or accessing input and output markets, information and knowledge effectively, but also to influence the rules of the game by becoming an integral part of policy-making processes. Inclusive, sustainable and effective cooperatives play a fundamental role in improving food security and nutrition, including by supporting small agricultural producers and marginalized groups such as young people and women. This is particularly the case in rural areas, where agriculture is the main source of employment and income, and where most of the world's and Africa's poor and hungry live. Without cooperatives, it is very difficult to realize the potential of family farming and thus achieve sustainable agricultural development. We know that 85% of farms are less than 2 hectares in size, especially here in Africa. However, they are responsible for at least 56% of agricultural production. Cooperatives empower their members to secure their own livelihoods and lift themselves out of poverty by creating economic and social opportunities. Excellencies, distinguished participants, together with our partners, FAO is taking a lead as a technical, knowledge-based UN specialized agency in providing scientific and evidence-based knowledge and guidance, and in providing fora to discuss and set the international and regional norms and standards, as well as develop and implement robust policies in this great potential environment that we have here in Africa. Supported by the regional conference in its 29th session held in Abidjan in April 2016, FAO focused its work on 3 regional initiatives as delivery mechanisms. These initiatives focused on Africa's commitment to end hunger by the year 2025, sustainable production intensification and value chain developments, and building resilience in Africa's drylands. Earlier this year, the 30th session of the FAO Regional Conference for Africa, held in Khartoum, Sudan, with the theme of sustainable development of agriculture and food systems in Africa, improving the means of production and the creation of decent and attractive employment for youth in a coherent, consistent and synergetic manner to achieve significant results and impact at country, sub-regional and regional levels. FAO is committed to supporting the SDGs and commitments of African leaders under the Malabo Declaration. In conclusion, to meet the Zero Hunger Challenge in the region, partnerships, collaboration and cooperation are crucial. Partnerships are at the heart of FAO's mission to help build consensus for a sustainable Africa free from hunger. The effective of the organization as a policy-making forum and unique center of excellence, knowledge and technical expertise depends on its ability to work and develop strategic partnerships. FAO is committed to working closely with the strategic partners such as cooperatives and producers' organizations to achieve the goal of zero hunger. I wish you all fruitful and productive discussions and consultation today. Thank you for your kind attention.